By the springtime of 1982, the old neighborhood wasn't much to look at. Rundown buildings from the turn of the century, traffic jams clogging the turnpike interchange, vacant lots, empty stores. Newton Corner, Massachusetts was an eyesore to almost everybody who passed through it. But some people called the old buildings home. For others, Newton Corner was a nice place to do business, or one of the few places where they could afford to shop. Now, a developer was about to demolish the old mixed-use commercial and residential buildings and put up office space. In the springtime of 1982, the people who lived and worked there were running out of time.
I've really liked this neighborhood. The neighborhood has been extremely, it's been very good to me.
This is a good, friendly community here. We all sticking together more or less, you know. All the merchants, we patronize each other and like that.
The tenants who live in the building upstairs here have almost like a community in itself. And they act like a real community does. There is friendship, interest, and patronage.
Newton Corner is good, very convenient for everybody. The transportation is perfect, very easy for the old people.
It's a super neighborhood. Not wealthy, blue-collar community. They work hard, and they like their space.
The backyard is like something you see many years ago, little playpens out in the backyard here with all the dirt and the gravel and everything. But the kids play there. That's going to be gone. What can you do?
In its last days, the old neighborhood was still a lively place, especially in the stores that remained open.
There's more to it than a lot of people think. You don't just open a box of letters and let it sit there. It has to be displayed properly.
Bobby's Fruit had been in Newton Corner 5 years.
And it's like part of me when I fix the stand up. I like the way it looks. The store looks full and colorful, and the fruit is nice. And people come in and they mention that. It'd be like someone complimenting an artist on a picture or a musician on a song, you know, in the same sense, you know, not to that degree. Business has been very good, very good. I've had a lot of regular customers, steady customers, and some people come 2 or 3 times a week.
People came to Bobby's for the atmosphere as much as for the fruit and vegetables.
Louis lives just down the street. He has been in the business since probably before my father was born. He makes me money. He takes things that might need a little trim, and he'll take and you wash them down a little bit and take the knife and trim them, clean them up, and when he puts it back on the shelf, it's twice as good looking as it was when he took it off. He's not too good looking, but he works good.
Yeah, I'm better looking than he is with his beard on him.
Connie's dressmaking shop had opened 3 years ago when husband and wife decided to go into business for themselves.
We like this area, and we try very hard, me and my wife. We spend a lot of money, and thank God, right from the beginning, everything came fine, because we have honest policy and good prices and nice work. And all the customers are very happy.
Decorators Clearinghouse was the new store on the block.
Basically, we came here as an experiment back a little over a year ago. When we came into this venture, we weren't really sure that Boston was ready for a designer clearing center on furniture.
We draw from all over the city and even out of the state. We've had people from Connecticut, New Jersey. Most of our furniture and things, these people from out of small towns have never really seen them.
The experiment has worked, and we've been successful at what we've done.
We start from the pattern to the fabric to the thread. We match the color for her because many people are colorblind or don't have good color sense.
Barnett's Fabrics had been in Newton Corner for almost 40 years.
We have the finest collection of buttons in the New England area.
In 1982, father and son ran the store.
I myself have served 3 generations of people in Newton, from mother to daughter. Daughter's gone through high school, got married, raise her children.
The personal attention you get when you come in here. If you need something they don't have, they'll get it for you. So naturally, it's going to be kind of hard to, you know, not be able to come into a shop that you're going to be able to get the things that you need. There are other shops have opened and closed because they don't give that personal attention that you get here. Okay.
Cottage Donuts had been a favorite hangout for more than 40 years.
I'm going to miss the store in that I'm going to miss the people. I've met a lot of interesting, different people.
You want a hairdo, hang around, I'll be glad to throw you up.
Ida's Friendly Corner had been there 15 years.
The older people, I catered to them so much that I sort of got rid of my younger people because nobody seemed to take to the older people, and I felt kind of bad for them. What's the matter? We have a lot of fun in here, you know. Everybody's got a problem. They come and tell me about it, like I'm a, you know, just friendly.
And residential tenants appreciated the buildings, despite their state of disrepair.
The architect who designed these buildings obviously believed in natural light, in gorgeous woodwork, in creating an environment where people could live and work in a sense of gracious space and caring. And the buildings have survived, providing that for all of us for quite some time, since about 1896, according to the newspaper articles we can find. They need some touch-up work, but structurally they're extremely sound. They have provided a great deal of pleasure for all of us.
But everybody agreed that the old neighborhood had seen better days. Ida remembered it 10 years ago.
Very nice. Nice dress stores. Nice stores, right, Mary?
Yes, nice.
And
very nice, very pleasant.
everything was different. Kennedy's was across the street, butter and eggs. We had some nice stores.
In fact, the place by the river that the Indians had called Nonantum had seen a number of better days and a lot of changes in the name of progress. It was the fortune and the fate of the neighborhood to be located on a major transportation corridor heading west from Boston. The first white settlers there were farmers. Then a number of taverns sprang up to cater to the teamsters driving home from the Brighton markets. In 1834, the Worcester Railroad came through and built a station at the corner. That was the beginning of Newton as a suburb. Soon, the first commuters were buying up farmland and building handsome homes on the hills overlooking the Charles River. By the late 19th century, Newton Corner was a thriving village. Its complexion would be called mixed use today. There were offices and homes, stores and light industry, banks, bakeries, taverns, a freight yard, the Nonantum House, a landmark hotel popular with the Boston gentry. But the Western Transportation Corridor, which had established Newton Corner, began to destroy it. The first problem was with the railroad. There were too many accidents at the grade crossings. Years of controversy led to a decision in 1897 to lower the railroad tracks and widen Washington Street. In the course of this project, 71 houses and 5 business blocks were demolished. By the 1940s, when Barnett's Fabrics was opening its Newton store, many of the present-day buildings were in place. Others were about to go.
Well, when the Mass Turnpike was projected, I individually had two choices: to lose my home in West Newton, one of the proposed routes, or the store in Newton Corner. They decided to come through Newton Corner, which meant that we were being pushed out.
The turnpike came and literally threw you out on the street. They had eminent domain powers. To many a businessman, that was the end of their businesses.
Turnpike created a division between the north and south sides of the turnpike. The south side is the gentry, I guess, and we are the service class, service department with our stores and what have you. We are completely out of wealth. Rich is not one of our problems. And it's hard for there to be a relationship between the two sides of the turnpike.
After the turnpike cut through the center of Newton Corner, the old buildings isolated on the north side began to decline.
There was a famous politician who used the words benign neglect. They certainly weren't forward-looking. and they just let things sit. But it reached a stage where people would look at it and say, well, nothing can be done.
The rent has been extremely cheap, but, you know, you kind of get what you pay for in that sense. I don't think they've spent 10 cents in the store since I've been here.
The water pipes broke, right? Do you know that the guy was going to fix, the plumber was going to fix this place with a piece of gum up there one night? Just plain old chewing gum? Could you see that scene? A woman under the dryer and it all fall back down? God, I'm telling you. I have pictures of the nun holding the ladder while I put up the paper again. I used to love hairdressing. I hate it now, with all the aggravation.
Nobody was sure what was going to happen to the old buildings.
When I first moved in, the lease involved a thing about if the buildings were going to be torn down, I'd be given 90 days' notice. And I chuckled, and people around here confirmed the fact that people had been threatening to tear down the buildings since day one.
I myself wanted to join one of our neighbors to purchase the property, but they wouldn't sell one parcel in itself. Of course, we were unable to finance the purchase of the entire area that they want to sell.
Residents and community groups worked to revitalize the neighborhood.
We fought off old-style urban renewal. People here helped write the Community Development Act laws, allowing for participation by people. We went down to Washington and told Congress that was how it should relate to people and not politics and big money.
The federal government put together a community development block grant program. And at that point, the planning department of the city of Newton got involved.
That program enabled us to target certain areas in the city of Newton for special attention, particularly those areas with high concentrations or relatively high concentrations of low moderate income families and individuals. Newton Corner was one of those areas that has long been in need of attention, and two, also had a concentration.
One outcome of the community development program was a federally funded revitalization plan, drawn up by an architect with considerable participation by the neighborhood. The emphasis was on renovation, subsidized housing, and pedestrian access and public transportation. Just where the big money would come from was not exactly clear, but there was some money available for beautification.
The advent of community development funding, the programs that have been put together have been support programs, new sidewalks, lighting, tree plantings, anything to improve the quality of life in the neighborhood.
The block grant program and the revitalization plan attracted interest from developers. One of these was the Drucker Company.
The Drucker Company was the first company that came along that was able to, one, initiate a project, and two, obtain some sense of consensus from the previous owners, the Gorin Leader Trust, which allowed them to go to the next step of spending some money on a planning stage. They came in and met with us. We discussed what we would like to see take place. One, revitalization. That didn't limit it to new construction or renovation. It was just discussion. But two, we felt that if anything were to take place, we would prefer to see some housing in that neighborhood and in those locations, preferably mixed income and preferably family housing along with elderly. I believe it's usually recognized that elderly housing is politically acceptable in almost any neighborhood, but family housing is much more difficult to provide, and the city has not provided as much as it perhaps should.
The developer, Ron Drucker, declined to participate in this documentary.
It was again at our advice that they meet with the various neighborhood representatives and attempt to investigate various options for development in those projects.
Apparently this developer had been to virtually every business organization and civic organization in the rest of Newton, and everybody had applauded him, and he came in here telling us that he was going to save Newton Corner. He neglected to find out ahead of time whether we wanted it saved or whether we felt we needed to be saved, and the result of that was that we did not applaud his coming.
The Drucker Company came up with a proposal that preserved the neighborhood's mixed-use tradition: offices, stores, and housing, including subsidized housing. It required federal and local government support, and a number of zoning variances that would have to be voted on by the Newton Board of Aldermen. The first reaction from the neighborhood was shock at the development's size.
Be overpowering, overwhelming.
It was simply huge. It was massive.
I was excited by it. I thought it had real potential.
His proposal for a gigantic high-rise mixed-use development was considered excellent in terms of the mixed-use aspects. The size was simply too high, too dense for the neighborhood.
It was a large project, it was a dense project, it was a project that was very difficult for anyone to understand, much less everyone.
The traffic conditions, as bad as they are now, would be just unimaginable. You couldn't cope with it, really. And I can imagine 600-700 officers releasing their employees at 4 o'clock at one time and going in this parking lot and trying to get out on Pearl Street and into Center Street. Impossible.
He came back with several revisions over and over and over, coming sometimes on a few issues fairly close to what the Neighborhood Association Task Force wanted.
I know that the company itself expended a great deal of energy meeting with the neighborhood, and the neighborhood spent and committed a great deal of time working with the developer.
He didn't seem to like working with the Newton Corner Neighborhood Association Task Force. He seemed to expect us to understand his position entirely without being ready to accept ours, because in terms of what we needed, his economic feasibility came first. It was that simple. He's a businessman.
Certainly, they've always said within certain bounds they'd be willing to work with anybody, but I think if you go into any city with a project, I think that's taken for granted today.
Drucker's plan was always for total clearance, I believe. Our plan did not necessarily call for total clearance or for major restoration. It didn't stipulate one or the other. The neighborhood plan preferred restoration.
Those buildings, they can be rebuilt, you know, even by the Drucker people, without everybody else to suffer, you know, because I think they have some historical meaning, nice-looking buildings. I don't see anything wrong. The only thing they need is inside work.
Although this building is old and needs quite a bit of work, there's no reason why it could not be rehabilitated and beautified, and the outside cleaned up inside, and as far as the rear is concerned, also could have been beautified. It's been done all over.
Not everybody agreed.
I am glad, but I'm sorry for the people, right? Because they've been in business a long time, and feel bad for them, but it has to go on like that, because God, a building will fall down.
This went on from summer of 1980. The task force was devised. We worked and worked and worked through it. In July of '81, the Neighborhood Association voted against his proposal in all its various forms that had come through because it did not meet the task force criteria.
The ambitious proposal by the Drucker Company had been endorsed by some of the Newton Corner merchants, the League of Women Voters, and others. But in response to the Newton Corner Neighborhood Association vote, as well as other factors, the Newton Board of Aldermen voted the project down in August 1981. That was the end of the Drucker Company's attempt to put a mixed-use development into Newton Corner. The project had depended on a complex foundation of government subsidies and zoning variances. The aldermen controlled the variances and city financial support. Without their backing, the whole plan collapsed.
Perhaps one of the almost painful aspects of the whole project when it died is that both parties left with a sour taste in their mouth. I think they worked with good faith with each other throughout the project, but at the end, a lot of that good faith fell apart on all sides. We tried to help broker that as much as we could from the municipal perspective, but there were two major forces at work, and it was not always easy to do. I felt somewhat of personal loss in this, I think.
However, the property was still for sale. So the developer, Ron Drucker, went ahead and bought it. If he stayed within the zoning laws and put up something straightforward, such as office buildings, he didn't need any variances at all.
If people were told that if the original proposal was killed, that Drucker could go ahead and go with the office buildings, a lot of people might not have opposed the original plan.
Their last alternative, as we're now going to see, of straight commercial office building, was their least preferred. But it was always an alternative.
Now, the developer no longer needed to work with the planning department, and there was no requirement for community participation. Months of silence followed, and rumors went up and down the street.
Well, there really hasn't been any information as far as I'm concerned. There's been a lot of rumors, but nothing definite has been said to a lot of people.
Rumors had been flying for 10 years or more. Nobody knew if this was the time they were going to come true. Then the eviction notices started showing up, to different stores, at different times, in different terms.
Drucker took over the place, I believe it was April 21st, if I'm not mistaken, and at that point in time he sent us a notice telling us to pay rent to him, and we had already worked out an agreement with him that we'd be out of here by July 1, and we felt comfortable about it.
Not one word was said as to how we would fare, expenses to be paid, possibility of moving back at a nominal rental. Not one word was said on, no action was indicated at all. Just a notice to move was mailed out when the lease expired.
I haven't even received an eviction notice myself as of yet.
August 1st, I must be out of the store. That's what I have so far. And I go crazy. I don't know how they treat us like that and what they mean by the August 1st, you have to get out. What happens if I don't find place to go? What? What I have to do? To resign from the business? To stop working? Or what? I have family, I have bills to pay. I have to work, you know, every single day in order to survive. And I feel very sorry about everybody. My own eyes, during that last months, I saw people cry. I saw people screaming. It was bad news for everybody.
Although details about the new office development were not known, not even to the developer at that point, people had different opinions about the effect it would have.
Probably, it'll bring in new business, new people. I understand there are going to be retail stores, and there's an opportunity for us to come back in. So hopefully, do something for business around here.
After he built up, you know, the new building is going to be so high the rent, we will be unable even to touch, not to work here, because he is talking very high rent. As I asked a lot of his people, and they told me, you want to work for Mr. Drucker? Yeah, you can come back. Who knows, after 2 years.
The fact that he's now building offices is not what I call an improvement to Newton Corner at all. It's 4 o'clock. This area will be a deserted city.
Be just a steel and concrete monster, and it'll be unfriendly, unfeeling. At 5 o'clock, people will roll up the carpets, and they'll probably be afraid to pass through the area. Yeah, the shops will be closed. There won't be any neighbors in the area.
It's just going to be retail and office now, and that will be a 9 to 5 activity for the most part, and the rest of the time it will be dead. There'll be no street life. There'll be very little other life, and that's too bad.
At least the office buildings are in better scale to the community than the original high-rise thing. But the loss of these buildings will take away the entire character of the neighborhood. Nah, not entire character, because the rest of the neighborhood will be here, but it'll just overshadow it, because there is character in the neighborhood beyond these buildings. We're not interested in stores who attract clientele that are different from us unless they serve Newton Corner first, because we are not a situation in which a Bloomingdale's or a heavy boutique area is appropriate.
In this area, we have the highest degree of elderly of any of the villages of the cities. Where are they going to shop? Are they going to afford the more expensive retailers that will take our places? Again, quoting some historical figure, it's kind of like telling people to eat cake when they really need a really good loaf of bread.
of the old neighborhood was an ironic and complicated story. By the springtime of 1982, most of the old mixed-use Newton Corner neighborhood had been wiped out by the progressive widening of the transportation corridor that had established it. For years, members of the community worked to revitalize it. In the late 1970s, federal funds were targeted to the area. This attracted developers. One of these, the Drucker Company, worked extensively with the community and came up with an ambitious plan that would have preserved the mixed-use character of the neighborhood. But the community objected to the density of the project. They had been exposed to high-rises before. When the development was rejected, the Drucker Company went ahead with an option it hadn't wanted in the first place: office buildings. It had been a long struggle, and everybody had lost.
The frustration of seeing an area destroyed where one has put many, many years of effort into, it's personally distressing. Some of it is very emotional, not something easily put to words. Some of it, you just want something to kick at, a wall or something.
However, it's too late to do anything. We have to move. Our lease is expired, and we are relocating at 721 Washington Street near Newtonville.
So the merchants were left to fall back on their spirit and their will to survive.
I'm going to take 2 weeks off, maybe 3, right? I'm going to do my bedroom over, and I'm going to do my cleaning. Then I'm going to look around and see what I want. I have 2 opportunities to do different things. And I have got a chef license if I want to be a cook.
And then I hope that my customers will follow me to where I'm going, which I think they will. I'm not concerned. I think I have a good relationship with my customers, so hopefully things will work out the way I'm hoping they will.
No, at night I'm a musician, rock musician.
And we're going to sell off what we can, naturally, because it's easier to move checks than it is the furniture, and we'll give the people the benefit, and we'll move.
But now, I think it's too late. And we have to try to find another place to go, if we'll be able to do that. We're going to be all right. We're going to relocate ourselves sooner or later. And we're going to be able to survive because God made us perfect, and we're going to be able to survive.